The chamber was vast, built to hold the representatives of 47 different species. Captain Tae Kwan stood in the visitors' gallery, his hands gripped tight on the railing. Below him, Ambassador Hana Lee stood alone at the speaker's podium, surrounded by a circle of alien faces. The Arbiter, a tall reptilian creature named Velmoth, raised his clawed hand. His voice echoed through the chamber. The vote is concluded, 39 in favor, 8 against. The motion passes. Humanity is hereby banned from further expansion beyond their current territories. Hana's shoulders sagged. She had spent 3 months preparing her defense. 3 months of presenting evidence, showing records, pleading their case. None of it mattered. The council had made up their minds before she ever arrived. Velmoth continued reading the decree. All human vessels must return to designated zones within 6 months. Trade with human worlds will be restricted to essential goods only. Cultural exchanges are suspended. Educational programs are terminated. Any violation of these terms will result in total quarantine of the Sol system. Tae watched as alien representatives whispered among themselves. Some looked satisfied. Others seemed uncomfortable. The Andorian delegate, a blue-skinned humanoid with white hair, shook her head sadly. She had voted against the ban. "The charges are clear," Velmoth said. "Humanity spreads too quickly. They adapt too fast. Wherever they go, they change things. They disrupt our carefully balanced societies with their ideas, their customs, their relentless curiosity. 23 worlds have filed complaints about human cultural contamination. 17 more cite economic disruption. The Council must protect the galaxy's stability." Hana stepped forward. "May I speak one final time?" Velmoth looked annoyed but nodded. "Briefly." "You speak of protecting stability," Hana said. Her voice was steady, though Tae could see her hands shaking. "But stability isn't the same as stagnation. Humanity has brought innovation to every world we've touched. We've shared our medical knowledge freely. Our agricultural techniques have ended famines. Our music has brought joy. Our stories have inspired millions." "Your chaos has undermined our order," Velmoth interrupted. "This discussion is over. The ban stands." Hana bowed her head and walked away from the podium. The gallery began to empty. Tae waited for her by the exit. When she reached him, he could see tears in her eyes, but she blinked them away. 200 years of work," she whispered. 200 years of building bridges, and they just burned them all." Tae leaned close to her ear. "They're 200 years too late." Hana looked at him sharply. Then, despite everything, she smiled. A grim, knowing smile. "You're right. They have no idea, do they?" "None at all," Tae said. They walked through the corridors of the council building in silence. Around them, alien bureaucrats hurried about their business. None of them paid attention to 2 defeated humans. When they reached their ship, Tae sealed the door behind them and activated the privacy shield. Then he pulled up a holographic display. "Let me show you something the council doesn't know about." The display lit up with a star map of the galaxy. Tae touched a control, and thousands of small blue dots appeared. "These are registered human colonies, the ones the Council knows about." Hana nodded. 347 worlds. "Now watch this." Tae touched another control. The map exploded with dots. Green ones, yellow ones, orange ones. They spread across the entire galaxy like a web of light. Tens of thousands of them. "What am I looking at?" Hana asked. "Green dots are humans who married aliens and settled on their worlds. That's about 40,000 individuals spread across 2,000 planets. Yellow dots are humans who emigrated legally to alien worlds and became citizens there. Another 60,000 people on 3,000 worlds." Tae zoomed in on a cluster of orange dots. "These orange ones are interesting. These are children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. People with human ancestry who've never been to Earth. They don't even identify as human anymore. They're Andorian, Centauran, Thalassian, but they carry human DNA. Hana stared at the display. How many? Our best estimate? 5 million people with human ancestry living on alien worlds. Most of them were born there. Most of them are citizens of those worlds, not Earth. The Council can't touch them. And they don't know? They never asked the right questions, Tay said. They asked how many colonies we have. They asked how many registered human settlements exist. They never asked how many humans live in their cities, work in their factories, teach in their schools. Hana touched the display, making it rotate. The dots formed patterns, clustering around major trade routes and cultural centers. This is why you weren't worried. The ban is meaningless, Tay confirmed. They're trying to stop something that already happened. We're not invaders arriving at their borders. We're already inside. We're married to their children. We're teaching their grandchildren. We're cooking in their restaurants and healing their sick. But they'll try to enforce it anyway, Hana said. Let them try, Tay replied. Wait until they figure out that the chef who makes their favorite food is human. That their daughter's husband is human. That the doctor who saved their life was trained by humans. That the song they sing to their children was written by a human. Hana sat down heavily. This is going to get complicated. It already is complicated, Tay said. The Council just doesn't realize it yet. They see us as outsiders, as invaders. They don't understand that we became part of their society a long time ago. Not through conquest, through marriage, through friendship, through simply being there and being helpful. The ship's computer chimed. A message was arriving. Tay opened it and laughed. What is it? Hana asked. It's from the colony on Thalassia Prime, the water world. They're asking if the ban means their human teachers have to leave. What did you tell them about teachers on Thalassia? 3 generations ago, we sent educational volunteers. They taught engineering, medicine, agriculture. Most of them married locals and stayed. Their children are Thalassian citizens. Their grandchildren run schools now. Another message arrived, then another. Within minutes, hundreds of messages poured in from across the galaxy. Confusion, anger, fear. Aliens asking what the ban meant for their human neighbors, their human colleagues, their human family members. It's starting, Hana said quietly. Yes, Tay agreed. The Council just kicked a hornet's nest. They thought they were banning a distant group of troublemakers. They're about to learn that we're not distant at all. We're everywhere. We're everyone. Hana looked at the star map, at the thousands of glowing dots representing human lives scattered across the galaxy. They wanted to contain us. Too late, Tay said. We're already home. The enforcement began 3 weeks after the ban. Council monitors arrived at major trade hubs across the galaxy with orders to document all humans and ensure their departure. They expected a simple task. They were wrong. On Kessler 4, a busy trade station near the galactic core, Monitor Reklan stood in the customs office reviewing registration records. Thousands of merchants operated on this station. His job was to identify the humans and inform them of the new restrictions. A merchant approached his desk. You wanted to see me? Reklan checked his scanner. You are Sung Park? That's right. Your genetic scan shows human DNA. You must cease operations here and return to human space within 30 days. Sung Park frowned. I was born here, on this station. My mother was human, yes, but my father was Andorian. I'm a registered citizen of the Andorian Confederacy. I've never even been to Earth. Reklan hesitated. But you are human. I'm half human, Sung corrected. Which half do you want to deport, my left side or my right side? The monitor checked his regulations. There was nothing about mixed species. The ban only mentioned humans. Was someone half human still human? He made a note to ask his supervisor. The next case was worse. A woman named Yuna Choi stood before him. Her genetic scan showed only 15% human DNA. Her great-grandmother had been human. The rest of her ancestry was Centauran. "I've never met a human," Yuna said. "My great-grandmother died before I was born. I'm the chief engineer on the orbital platform. I was born here. I work here. I pay taxes here. Are you really going to deport me because my great-grandmother was from Earth?" Reklan didn't know what to say. He moved on to the next case. By the end of the first day, he had interviewed 40 people. Only 3 were fully human and agreed they needed to leave. 15 were mixed ancestry. 22 were aliens who had human DNA from medical treatments. Humanity had shared their genetic therapies freely, curing diseases on dozens of worlds. Now those cured patients registered as part human on genetic scanners. His supervisor wasn't helpful. "Use your judgment," the Vortan official told him. "The council wants humans gone. Figure out what that means." On the water world of Thalassia, Monitor Pelmoon faced a different problem. She stood in the central square of Coral City, addressing a crowd of angry citizens. "The educational contracts must be terminated," she announced. "All human teachers must return to their home worlds." An elderly Thalassian pushed forward. His gills fluttered with agitation. "My children's teacher is human. She's been here for 30 years. She married my cousin. Her children go to school with my grandchildren. You're saying she has to leave?" "Those are the terms of the ban," Pelmoon said. "Her children are Thalassian citizens," another voice called out. "They were born here. They've never been to Earth. Are you deporting them too?" "No. Citizens may stay." "So you're breaking up families? Taking mothers from their children?" Pelmoon checked her datapad. The problem was worse than she thought. On Thalassia alone, there were 237 humans who had married locals. Most had children. Some had grandchildren. Deporting the humans meant separating families or forcing entire families to leave. The crowd grew larger and angrier. Someone threw a piece of fruit. It splattered on Pelmoon's uniform. Security moved in, but the crowd refused to disperse. "You can't do this!" a young Thalassian shouted. "My father is human! Are you going to take him away from us?" Pelmoon retreated to her office and sent an urgent message to the council. "Enforcement not possible without causing severe social disruption. Requesting guidance." The most confusing case came from the independent station, Haven's Gate. Monitor Zareth arrived to find a thriving community of over 50,000 residents. According to records, 30% were human. But when he tried to identify them, things fell apart. A restaurant owner named Kai Nam appeared on the list. Zareth went to his establishment, a popular noodle house that served customers from 20 different species. "Kai Nam?" Zareth asked. An older man with kind eyes looked up from his cooking. "That's me. Can I get you something to eat?" "You're human?" "My grandmother was human. Does that count?" Zareth scanned him. The genetic markers showed 70% alien DNA. "You're registered as human in the station census." Kai laughed. "That's because I marked human on the cultural identity form 20 years ago. I grew up eating Korean food. I speak Korean at home. I celebrate human holidays. But genetically, mostly alien." "So you're not human?" "Depends on who's asking and why," Kai said with a shrug. "For taxes, I'm registered on Kelmar 3, an alien world. For cultural programs, I identify as human. For medical purposes, I'm classified as mixed species. Which one do you need?" Zareth's head hurt. He'd been on the station for 5 days and hadn't successfully identified a single deportable human. Back at council headquarters, the monitor's reports piled up. Every world told the same story. Humans had integrated so deeply into local populations that extracting them was nearly impossible. On the industrial world of Forge Prime, 40% of the engineering workforce had human ancestry. Removing them would shut down production. On the agricultural colony of Greenfield, human farming techniques had been adopted by everyone. The monitor couldn't tell who was originally human and who had just learned human methods. On the resort world of Paradise Bay, the most popular hotels were owned by human-alien partnerships. The contracts were so entangled that lawyers said it would take years to untangle them. The council's chief enforcer, a massive insectoid named Clickthar, reviewed the reports in frustration. He had been so confident. Humans were easy to identify. They looked distinctive. They had clear genetic markers. How hard could it be to send them home? Very hard, apparently. He called a meeting of all monitors. They gathered in a secure conference room, each looking exhausted and confused. "Summary," Clickthar demanded. Reklan spoke first. "Kessler 4 is a disaster. We can't agree on who counts as human. Is it 50%, 25, 5? We've found people with trace human DNA from medical treatments. Do they count?" Pelmoon added. "Thalassia is worse. We can identify the humans, but we can't remove them without tearing apart families. And the public is furious. 3 cities have had protests. One mayor threatened to secede from the galactic community if we don't leave." Zareth shook his head. "Haven's Gate has 50,000 registered humans. I've been there 2 weeks. I haven't confirmed a single full-blooded human who doesn't have legal protections as a citizen of somewhere else. Monitor after monitor reported the same problems. Mixed genetics, cultural integration, legal protections, economic entanglement, family connections." Clickthar looked at the data. According to their investigations, there were approximately 5 million people with human ancestry living on alien worlds. But 90% of them were citizens of those worlds. They weren't human colonists. They were locals who happened to have human grandparents. "What about the pure humans?" Clickthar asked. "Surely we can deport those." "About 40,000, Reklan said. "But most are married to locals. Their spouses are threatening lawsuits. Some alien governments are refusing to cooperate. They say these humans are valuable members of their society." Clickthar realized the horrible truth. The ban assumed humans were separate from the galactic community, outsiders who could be sent away. But they weren't outsiders anymore. They were inside. They were part of the fabric of hundreds of societies. He drafted his report to the council with shaking hands. Enforcement of the ban is not achievable without destabilizing multiple sectors. Humans have integrated into local populations to a degree that separation is functionally impossible. Recommend immediate review of ban parameters. The council wouldn't be happy, but Clickthar didn't know what else to tell them. You couldn't ban people who were already home. When physical removal failed, the council turned to economic pressure. If they couldn't deport humans, they would starve them out. The new decree was simple. All human-owned businesses must cease operations. All trade with Earth corporations was banned. All human assets in galactic banks would be frozen. The council's chief economist, a crystalline being named Charvel, was put in charge. She was confident this would work. Economics was clean. Numbers didn't lie. Cut off the money, and the humans would have no choice but to leave. She assigned the task of untangling human businesses to an up-and-coming analyst named Mina Seo. The name struck Charvel as odd, but Mina's credentials were excellent. She had graduated top of her class from the Galactic Finance Academy and worked for the Central Banking Authority for 5 years. Mina accepted the assignment with a strange smile. "I'll start with the biggest one. Horizon Dynamics." Horizon Dynamics was Earth's largest corporation. It produced everything from starship engines to medical equipment. It employed over 2 million people across 300 worlds. Shutting it down would be a significant blow to human economic power. Mina spent a week reviewing ownership documents. Then she requested a meeting with Charvel. "I have the analysis you wanted," Mina said, placing a data pad on the desk. Charvel activated the display. "So Horizon Dynamics is human-owned?" "It was," Mina said carefully, 60 years ago. "But it's gone public since then. Shares have been sold on open markets across the galaxy. Current ownership is 34% human, 66% alien. 66% alien? Charvel repeated. That's correct. The largest single shareholder is actually the Centauran Pension Fund. They own 12%. The Andorian Trade Consortium owns 8%. There are shareholders from 43 different species. Charvel felt a headache forming. Her species didn't get headaches, but she felt one anyway. Can we freeze the human portion? Legally. Maybe. Practically. It would crash the company's stock value. The alien shareholders would lose trillions. They would sue the council for damages. Next company. Mina pulled up another file. Silver Sky Manufacturing produces agricultural equipment, founded by humans but sold to a Vortan investment group 20 years ago. Current ownership is 91% alien. The CEO is Vortan. The board of directors has 2 humans out of 15 members. Company after company showed the same pattern. Human businesses had partnered with aliens, merged with alien firms, or sold shares to alien investors. The galactic economy was so interconnected that pulling out the human pieces would collapse the entire structure. On the trading station, Atlas Point, a human financier named Dae Yoon watched the council's efforts with amusement. He sat in his office overlooking the main trading floor, where representatives from 100 species bought and sold everything imaginable. His assistant, a young Thalassian woman, brought him the latest news. The council froze all human accounts in the central bank. How many accounts? Day asked. About 40,000, all registered to human citizens of Earth. Day laughed. And how many accounts do humans have in local banks across the galaxy? About 6 million. And the council can't touch those because they're protected by local banking laws. Day shook his head. They're playing chess while we've been playing 3-dimensional Go for 2 centuries. The assistant looked worried. But sir, you're human. What if they come for you? I'm a citizen of Atlas Point, Day corrected. This station doesn't answer to the council. We're independent. My money is in 12 different banking systems across neutral space. Good luck freezing that. The real damage started when the council tried to ban trade with human corporations. The decree stated that any ship carrying goods produced by human companies would be denied docking rights at council-affiliated ports. The first ship turned away was a Centauran freighter carrying medical supplies. The cargo included vaccines manufactured by a company that was 15% human-owned. The shipment was headed for a colony suffering from an outbreak of red fever. The colony's governor was furious. She sent an angry message to the council. You're letting my people die because of a technicality? These vaccines work. I don't care who made them. She ordered the ship to land anyway. The council threatened sanctions. The colony governor told them where they could put their sanctions. 3 more colonies defied the trade ban in the first week. By the second week, it was 20 colonies. By the third week, over 100 worlds had declared the trade restrictions unworkable and cruel. Charvel realized they had a bigger problem. Human companies didn't just make luxury goods. They produced essential items that millions depended on. Navigation software used by 80% of civilian ships, developed by a joint human-Centauran company. The most effective cancer treatment in the galaxy, invented by human doctors and manufactured under license by companies on 60 worlds. The water purification systems used on desert colonies, designed by a human engineer and now produced by factories that employed mostly aliens. Agricultural patents that fed 300 colonies? Many were held by companies with human founders, even if those companies were now majority alien-owned. Mina presented her final report to the council in person. Charvel brought her to the main chamber where all 47 species gathered. Arbiter Velmoth looked impatient. Tell us this can be done, he demanded. Mina activated a holographic display. I've analyzed the top 5,000 companies that have human ownership or human origins. On average, they're 62% alien-owned. They employ 40 million people, 90% of whom are aliens. They produce goods that are considered essential on over 800 worlds. She paused. If we shut them all down, we would trigger an economic collapse that would affect half the galaxy. Unemployment would spike. Supply chains would break. Colonies would lose access to vital goods. The economic damage would be measured in the hundreds of trillions of credits. Surely, we can target just the human majority companies, Velmoth said. Mina pulled up another chart. There are only 347 companies where humans own more than 50%. Most are small businesses. Restaurants, medical clinics, family shops. Shutting them down would barely affect humans, but would put 50,000 aliens out of work. A Vortan counselor spoke up. What about the big corporations? The ones with real power? All of them have significant alien ownership, Mina said. Horizon Dynamics, the largest, is 66% alien-owned. Its shareholders include pension funds, investment groups, and individual investors from 43 species. If it collapses, millions of aliens lose their retirement savings. The chamber fell silent. Mina continued. The truth is, there's no such thing as a purely human company anymore. Trade has mixed everything together. A restaurant on Kelmar might be owned by a human, but it employs aliens, buys from alien suppliers, and pays taxes to an alien government. A factory on Earth might be human-run, but it sells to alien markets and has alien investors. She closed the display. You can't separate human economics from galactic economics. We've been trading for too long. We're too entangled. Jin Han, the CEO of Horizon Dynamics, watched the council proceedings from his office on Mars. He was an old man now, in his 70s, but his mind was sharp. He'd built Horizon from a small startup to a galactic giant, and he'd done it by being smart about partnerships. His vice president, a Centauran woman named Kelra, sat across from him. They're giving up on the economic ban. Good, Jin said. I didn't want to play the cards I was holding. But I would have. What cards? Jin smiled. If they'd frozen our accounts, I was going to release information about which council members own shares in our company. Turns out 12 of them would have lost money if we collapsed, including Velmoth. Kelra laughed. You're devious. I'm practical, Jin corrected. Humans learned a long time ago that you don't conquer people through force. You befriend them. You help them. You become part of their world until they can't imagine getting rid of you. The Council's economic ban quietly disappeared from the official records. No announcement was made, no explanation given. It simply stopped being enforced. Dae-Yoon raised a glass in his office on Atlas Point. To the Council, he said to his assistant. May they keep trying to close barn doors long after the horses have left. Physical removal failed. Economic sanctions failed. The Council tried one last approach. They would allow existing humans to stay, but ban all human culture. No more human music. No more human books. No more human art. New generations would grow up without human influence, and eventually, humanity's presence would fade away. The Cultural Protection Act passed with a vote of 32 to 15. All human cultural exports were to be removed from the galactic network within 60 days. The censors began their work immediately. They started with music. On the factory world of Kelmar 3, workers arrived for their morning shift to find something wrong. The music was gone. For 15 years, the factory had played a rotation of music from across the galaxy during work hours. It made the long shifts bearable. But now, silence. A supervisor explained. The council banned 40% of our playlist, all the human songs. We're working on finding replacements. The workers looked at each other. Then softly, someone began to hum. Others joined in. Within minutes, 200 workers were singing Song of Stars, a Korean folk tune that had become an anthem in factories across 6 sectors. Their voices echoed through the assembly hall. The supervisor couldn't stop them. He tried once, then gave up. The next day, workers on 300 factories across Kelmar. 3 were singing the banned songs. Production actually increased. At the University of Andoria Prime, Professor J. Lim received notice that his entire curriculum had been suspended. He taught human philosophy, specifically ethics and moral reasoning. His classes were some of the most popular at the university. He stood in his classroom on what was supposed to be his last day. The room was packed. Not just his regular students, but hundreds more who'd heard about the ban. They filled every seat and lined the walls. "I've been told I can't teach you anymore," Jay said quietly. "The council has decided that human ideas are too dangerous." A student raised her hand. She was Vortan, her blue scales catching the light. "But sir, you taught us how to think about difficult problems, how to consider different viewpoints, how to make ethical choices. Those lessons don't stop being true just because the council says so." Another student, a young Centauran male, stood up. "My father was sick. The doctors couldn't agree on treatment. I used the ethical framework you taught us to help him make his choice. You saved his life by teaching me how to think clearly. How is that dangerous?" Jay felt tears in his eyes. "I'm glad I could help. But I can't teach anymore. It's forbidden." The Vortan student shook her head. "Then we'll teach each other. We took notes. We have your books. The knowledge doesn't disappear just because you're not allowed to share it anymore." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Students protested at universities on 15 worlds. Some universities ignored the ban entirely. Others reluctantly complied, only to have students form unofficial study groups where they shared human texts in secret. The biggest problem came with entertainment. Human stories had spread everywhere. Children across the galaxy grew up watching shows about humans, reading books by human authors, playing games designed by human creators. On the resort world of Paradise Bay, a teenage alien girl named Suji Kang sat in her room, devastated. She had just discovered that her favorite show, Starbound, had been removed from all streaming services. The show followed a crew of explorers, both human and alien, as they discovered new worlds. Suji had watched every episode 3 times. She'd written stories set in that universe. She'd made friends online who loved the show as much as she did. Now it was gone, erased from the network as if it had never existed. But Suji was clever. She found old discussion forums where fans had saved episodes. She found archive sites that still had copies. Within a week, she'd recovered the entire series. Then she shared it with her friends, who shared it with their friends. The council's censors tried to delete the files, but they spread faster than they could be removed. For every copy deleted, 10 more appeared. Fans across the galaxy were backing up their favorite human content and sharing it in secret networks. On the industrial world of Forge Prime, the council tried to ban a human tradition that had become beloved across multiple sectors. The coffee break. A human engineer named Bo Kwan had introduced the concept 30 years ago. Instead of working straight through long shifts, workers took 2 15-minute breaks for coffee and conversation. Studies showed it improved both morale and productivity by over 40%. Within a decade, factories across Forge Prime had adopted the practice. Then it spread to other worlds. Now the council declared it a human cultural practice that must be eliminated. Workers were ordered to return to continuous shifts with no breaks. The workers refused. On the first day of the new policy, every factory on Forge Prime stopped production exactly 3 hours into the shift. Workers sat down and had their coffee break anyway. Security was called, but the workers wouldn't move. "You can arrest us," one worker told the factory manager, "but then you'll have no workers and no production. Or you can let us have our 15 minutes. The factories stood idle for 2 days. Finally, the governor of Forge Prime sent a message to the council. "Your cultural ban is causing economic damage. We're resuming normal operations, including breaks. If you have a problem with that, Come enforce it yourselves." The council didn't come. They had bigger problems. Protests erupted on the council's home world. Millions of aliens marched through the capital city, demanding the cultural ban be lifted. They carried signs with human quotes, played human music, and wore clothing with human designs. A Thalassian mother held her young son's hand as she marched. "I read him human bedtime stories," she told a reporter. "Stories about being brave, being kind, helping others. Now they tell me those stories are forbidden. What do I tell my child? That kindness is illegal?" An Andorian businessman explained why he was protesting. "Human cuisine saved my restaurant. I was failing until I learned to make Korean barbecue. Now I have 6 locations and employ 40 people. They want to ban the recipes that feed my family. They want to erase the knowledge that gave me success?" The protests grew larger each day. On some worlds, they turned violent. On the mining colony of Red Rock, riots broke out when enforcers tried to shut down a popular music venue that played human jazz. 3 people died. Dozens were injured. The avian species of Chiral, known for their calm and logical nature, did something unprecedented. Their entire delegation walked out of the council chambers. The avian representative spoke before leaving. "We adopted the human concept of weekends 20 years ago. Our workers rest every 6th and 7th day. Our health has improved. Our happiness has increased. Our productivity is higher than ever. Now you tell us we must return to continuous work schedules because rest days are a human idea? We refuse. If that means leaving the council, so be it." 3 more species threatened to follow. The council was fracturing. On Earth, a musician named Rena Park watched the protests with mixed emotions. She was in her 40s now, but she'd been making music since she was a teenager. Her songs had reached across the galaxy, been translated into 40 languages, inspired millions. Now those songs were banned. But everywhere she looked online, she saw aliens singing them anyway, in protests, in their homes, in secret concerts. Her music had become a symbol of resistance. "They can't stop it," her manager told her. "Songs aren't just files on a server, they're in people's hearts. Their memories and feelings. You can't delete that." Rena thought about all the messages she'd received over the years. The Centauran girl who said her song helped her through her mother's death. The Vortan soldier who listened to her music before going into battle. The Thalassian couple who had their first dance to one of her songs. "They never understood," Rena said softly. "Culture isn't something you own or control. It's something you share, and once you share it, it belongs to everyone." The Cultural Protection Act lasted 47 days before the council suspended it. Not officially. They simply stopped enforcing it. Censors were reassigned. Bans were quietly lifted. The official record said nothing about a failure. But everyone knew the truth. You couldn't ban ideas that had already taken root. You couldn't erase stories that people had already taken into their hearts. You couldn't stop songs that people sang in the shower, in their cars, to their children at bedtime. Human culture hadn't been imposed by force. It had been shared willingly. It had been adopted because it resonated with people, because it made their lives better, richer, more meaningful. And once something becomes part of who you are, no council vote can take it away. The council chamber was tense. An emergency session had been called. 3 species had officially withdrawn from the council in protest of the human ban. 12 more were threatening to follow. Riots continued on 7 worlds. The galactic economy was unstable. Something had to change. Arbiter Velmoth called the session to order. His voice was tired. The past 3 months had aged him. "We are here to reconsider the human ban. Ambassador Hana Lee of Earth has requested to speak. I have granted this request." Hana walked to the center of the chamber. She was older than when this had all started. Gray showing in her hair. but her eyes were clear and determined. Captain Tae Kwan watched from the gallery, giving her an encouraging nod. "Thank you for this opportunity," Hana began. "3 months ago, you banned humanity. You told us we were too disruptive, too chaotic, too dangerous to be allowed to spread. You were going to send us home and seal us away." She activated a holographic display. "But you couldn't do it. Not because humans are powerful, not because we have big armies or strong weapons. You couldn't do it because we're already here. We're already part of your societies. We're your neighbors, your colleagues, your friends, your family." The display showed images from across the galaxy: a human teacher with her Thalassian students, a mixed species family celebrating a birthday, human and alien scientists working together in a laboratory, a restaurant where a human chef taught an alien apprentice. "You tried to define who was human," Hana continued, "but you couldn't. Is someone with one human grandparent human? How about one human great-great-grandparent? What about aliens who received human DNA and medical treatments? What about people who were born on human worlds but have alien parents?" A counselor interrupted. "We know we made mistakes in implementation." "These weren't mistakes," Hana said firmly. "These were the inevitable results of trying to separate things that are already mixed together. You can't unmix a cake once it's baked. You can't separate water once it's flowed together." She changed the display. "You tried economic sanctions, but human businesses are part of your economies. Alien investors own shares in our companies. Aliens work in our factories. Our trade networks are your trade networks. Cutting us off means cutting yourselves." Another image appeared. "You tried to ban our culture, but culture doesn't belong to anyone. Once a song is sung, it belongs to everyone who heard it. Once a story is told, it lives in everyone who listened. You can't take back ideas that people have already accepted." Velmoth stood. "So what are you proposing? That we simply accept that the ban failed?" "I'm proposing that you recognize what actually happened," Hana said. 200 years ago, humans entered the galactic community. We didn't come as conquerors. We came as students eager to learn, as traders wanting to exchange goods, as explorers curious about our neighbors, as friends." She walked slowly around the chamber, looking at each delegate. "We married your children. We learned your languages. We shared our food and ate yours. We taught in your schools and learned in ours. We healed your sick and let you heal ours. We told you our stories and listened to yours. And in doing so," she continued, "we stopped being us and them. We became just us. Human and alien stopped being opposite categories. They became complementary parts of the same civilization." The chamber was silent. Hana returned to the center. "You banned humanity because you were afraid of change. But the change already happened. It happened slowly, over 2 centuries, one friendship at a time, one marriage, one business partnership, one shared meal, one song, one story." She turned off the display. "You can't ban us because we're not separate from you anymore. Banning humans means banning part of yourselves." Before anyone could respond, a new voice spoke from the visitors' gallery. "May I address the council?" All eyes turned. A small figure stood up, a child, no more than 7 years old. She had features that were clearly mixed: human eyes, Centauran skin tone, Andorian hair, a genetic tapestry of 3 species. Security moved to stop her, but Velmoth raised his hand. "Let her speak." The child walked down to the chamber floor. She looked tiny in the vast space, but she spoke clearly. "My name is Hyun-ji. My mother is human. My father is half Centauran, half Andorian. I was born on Thalassia. I go to school with Vortan kids and Thalassian kids and Avian kids." She looked around at all the adult faces watching her. "When you banned humans, my teacher asked if I had to leave. I didn't understand. Leave where? Thalassia is my home. I've never been to Earth. My best friend is Vortan. My doctor is Andorian. My favorite food is Centauran noodles. My favorite music is human jazz. Hyunji's voice grew stronger. You ask what I am. Am I human? Centauran? Andorian? I'm all of them. I'm none of them. I'm just me. And there are millions like me. Kids who don't fit in your old categories. What are you going to do with us? The child looked directly at Velmoth. My dad says you're scared. Scared that if everything mixes together, you'll lose what makes you special. But you won't. We don't lose our cultures when we share them. We make them bigger, better. She smiled. I know Andorian poems, Centauran history, human songs, Vorton mathematics, Thalassian ocean lore. I'm not less of anything. I'm more of everything. Hyunji bowed as her human mother had taught her, and returned to the gallery. The chamber remained silent. Finally, Velmoth spoke. He sounded old and sad. When I proposed the human ban, I believed I was protecting our way of life. I believed that humanity was spreading too fast, changing too much. I was afraid that we would lose ourselves. He looked down at his clawed hands. But I was wrong. Change was not happening to us. It was happening with us. Humans didn't force their ways on us. We chose to learn from them. We chose to trade with them. We chose to befriend them. The Arbiter took a deep breath. I have a confession. My granddaughter married a human 15 years ago. They have a child. My great-grandchild has human DNA. When this ban passed, I didn't think about what it would mean for her, for him. I was thinking about abstracts, categories, rules. He looked at Hyunji in the gallery. That child reminded me that we're not talking about categories. We're talking about people. Real people with real lives. People who are already part of our families. Velmoth turned to the council. I move that we overturn the ban, not just suspend it, overturn it completely. Furthermore, I move that we offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Council, not as outsiders we're tolerating, as equal partners in our shared future. The vote was called. This time there was no lengthy debate. The result was 43 in favor, 4 against. The ban was overturned, but Velmoth wasn't finished. I also propose we establish a new principle, that identity is not fixed and separate, that citizenship and culture can be shared and mixed, that the old categories of this species and that species are less important than what we build together. More votes, more approvals. The meeting stretched for hours as new policies were crafted. Recognition of mixed species citizenship, protection for cultural exchange, economic integration frameworks, educational partnerships. When it finally ended, Hana and Tai stood on the observation deck of their ship, looking out at the stars. We won, Tai said quietly. We didn't have to win, Hana replied. We'd already won. 200 years ago, when the first human decided to stay on an alien world. When the first human married an alien. When the first human shared a meal, a song, a story. Every little connection was a victory. The council was fighting something that had already happened. Yes, Hana smiled. They tried to ban us, but we were already everywhere. In the music playing in alien homes, in the recipes cooking in alien kitchens, in the genes of mixed children, in the friendships spanning across worlds, in the stories people told their kids at bedtime. Tay pulled up a star map. The galaxy glowed before them. What do you think happens now? More of the same, Hana said. More mixing, more sharing, more connections. The council finally recognized what was already true. But the real work, the real integration, that's been happening all along. It'll keep happening. One person at a time, one friendship at a time. She pointed at the map. See those ships leaving Earth? Those are the first official mixed species colony missions. Humans and aliens together, founding new worlds, building new societies that don't belong to one species or another. They belong to everyone. A new kind of civilization, Tay said. Not new, Hana corrected gently. We've been building it for 2 centuries. We're just finally admitting what we've already created. Far below, on Earth, Jin Han watched the news of the Council's decision. His assistant, Kellera, brought him a glass of wine to celebrate. To humanity, she toasted. To all of us, Jin corrected. Human, Centauran, Andorian, Vortan, all of us. Because that's the point. We're not separate anymore. We never really were. They just finally noticed. On Thalassia, in her small classroom, the human teacher who'd almost been deported gathered her students. History happened today, she told them. Remember this. Remember that change doesn't come from governments or councils. It comes from ordinary people choosing to be kind, choosing to be curious, choosing to share. On the factory world of Forge Prime, workers took their coffee breaks and talked about the future. On university campuses across 100 worlds, students discussed what the new policies would mean. In restaurants, in homes, in ships traveling between stars, people celebrated. The Council had tried to ban humanity, but humanity's greatest strength was never force or numbers. It was genuine interest in others, curiosity, willingness to learn and share, the ability to see potential friends everywhere they looked. You couldn't ban that. You couldn't contain it. You couldn't stop it. Because once people connect, really connect, they don't let go. They build on those connections. They create something new together. The Council had been 200 years too late. Not because humanity was too powerful to stop, but because by the time they tried, humanity was no longer something separate that could be stopped. They were already home, everywhere.